Hey, my name is Tomasz Poszytek. Today, I would like to make sort of a deep dive into approval templates that you can use in Microsoft Teams. Alright, so when you watch my other videos around approvals, you'll know that approvals as a technology, as a feature within Power Platform, so that you can use both in Microsoft Power Automate and in Microsoft Teams, is environment related. So whenever you navigate to approvals, you need to switch to a specific environment where these approvals are assigned to you. And that thing is as well specific to approval templates in Microsoft Teams. So when you navigate to approvals application, here at the bottom, you have an option to create or manage templates. And this is where you have a list of all templates which are created. But here again, templates are either organization-wide or available to specific teams so that people within those specific teams can use those templates. Or you can even create templates to be used only by a group of specific people. All right, so that is about the visibility and scopes of templates. Now, once you attempt to create a new template, you first have to create or pick one of those existing templates as a draft so that you'll be able then to customize it, or you can create it from scratch. Now, I will switch for a moment to an account of Adele Vance, and that is because you need to know as well who can create templates. So templates can be either created by a team's owner. So whoever is a team's owner of a specific team can create templates to be used within that team. However, if you want to create an organization-wide or a template that is available to specific people, those have to be created by Teams administrator. Nevertheless, once Adele navigates to her approvals application, and then when she initiates the creation of the new template, first what she's doing again is this choose of specific of the specific template existing as a starting point. So for example, let's create an item application. Yep, this is how that template looks like. And then she can choose for which team she would like to create such a template. Now, if I switch to my account, which is the Teams admin account, and here I start creation of the new template. Let's pick the same template as a starting point. I am able to either select if I want to create the template for the whole organization, or for the specific people, or maybe for the specific team as Adele has. Now, once Adele creates that that template, the next step that she's doing is to write some information around that template. So what is its name? What is the description? And what is a category that this template should be added to? Next, she's able to modify the form design. And now here is the most interesting part that is important when speaking about the integration between, let's say, the forms, those templates and the Power Platform, because this template is not being built using adaptive cards, unfortunately, but is being used, is using Microsoft Forms. So once you try to customize it, once you try to add new option, you will see the interface known from Forms, Microsoft Forms. So you don't have a lot of choices here. You can only use choice, text, and date fields. But you have as well options to set those fields required. You have options to add subtitles, restrictions. There is no branching, of course, and no groups, no other options that you have in Microsoft Forms as a platform. So once you're fine with creation of those fields with the form design, the next step is to define the workflow settings. So here you need to as well express whether the user who is going then to use that template has to attach a file, and who is the approver. So whether the requester needs to define approver themselves, or maybe this should be a list of predefined approvers. Right, and then there is as well this option whether you want to have a response from all assignees or maybe just the first one. And finally, you're able to customize responses. So you need to provide at least one response. So it can be like I consent or I approve, I reject, approve, reject, like up to you, or whether you'd like to leave the default responses. All right. So I will just switch this to let requester enter, and then I'm able to see how my form is going to look like in the end. All right. And then I can publish it. And here is where the interesting part starts. So now when Adele Vance navigates to forms, Microsoft.com, she is going to have already a list of all these templates that she has created together with information in which Office 365 group it was created, right? Because those templates are not built or are not created within the scope of a specific employee. They are created within groups. So here I have the list of groups that Adele is a member of. And she as well has information how many forms are built within each of those groups. And well, she can just switch in there to see these forms and to see the questions. The point around these forms is that they are read-only. So you can't modify these requests, those questions, anything around the form design from Microsoft Forms perspective. It can be only modified from Microsoft Teams interface. However, this is where you can see the responses to those requests. I mean, to the tasks which are using these templates. All right. So now, once Adele navigates back to approvals, and then she triggers the to approvals. So we need to close the templates and then we are back to approvals. And now she initiates new approval. She's now able to either start with a blank approval, so the basic request, or to start with one of the existing templates. She can as well switch back to the classic view where this new request is just the default form and the templates, so that she can choose from one of those existing templates, either assigned to her or the organization-wide, or available within one of those teams that she is a member of. Now, once we switch back to the new view, we have as well an option to use the eSign provider if any of those eSign providers is configured to work within Microsoft Teams. Or, as said, to pick one of those existing templates either for organization or the team that she is a member of. So let's say she will now start and use the leave request from the retail team. So here she must enter the title of the request. She'll assign that to me. Let's say the annual, just for 3 days. And say send. So right now, this task is being created. Now, me as an admin, I am sent a notification that Adele Vance sent me a request about the leave. And here I have all this information that she entered. So the start date, end date, and the remarks. Right? So from there, I can either approve or reject, or if there were like any custom responses, I could choose between those custom responses. I can as well reassign that task and say, whatever, complete the approval. So this is how templates work. However, when you're thinking about an integration between these templates and the Cloudflow, or maybe any kind of automation of this those templates, then this part is getting a little bit tricky. So right now I'll try to make some kind of a Cloudflow that will show you how to get data out of these forms and how you can actually build, again, automation around approvals in Microsoft Teams that are using templates. So first, let me show you the data behind these new approvals. Let's navigate to Dataverse, because even though that these approvals are using Microsoft Forms, some of the data is still stored within Dataverse, as all approvals are doing. And again, in Dataverse, that is specific to the environment where a task has been created. So for example, in a scenario where Adele has created her approval and she created that approval in Contoso default, then this task data is going to be present in Contoso default environment. If she had created that task in any other environment, then again, the data related to that task would be stored in that environment respectively. Okay, so I am now in a Contoso environment. There is, of course, a list of other environments. Now, the point about the environments, the Dataverse for Teams environments, is that you are not able to switch to other environments from Power Apps. So before navigating to tables, you first need to switch the environment within Power Automate portal, because in Power Automate portal, you are able to select one of the Dataverse for Teams environments, and after that, you can navigate to to tables. All right. So right now, I am in Contoso default, so the default environment, and I need to navigate to Approval Table. Here in Approval Table, there is a set of columns which are exclusively being used by approvals using templates. So once you scroll down, there is a list of 3 columns: the template form ID, the template ID, and the template response ID. And these 3 columns are being actually utilized when speaking about the integration between the regular approvals and Microsoft Forms, which is as well used in that specific scenario. So now once I switch to data and then all columns, now what was the task that Adele sent to me? Sorry, maybe that will be faster. That task was just the leave request, right? That was just the leave request. So let's try and find something called leave request. Okay, there is something. It is already approved, so possibly this is the one. It has been created today. Yep, today. So that's the task. Just one last remark. Yep, it was created by Adele Vance. So now once I move to that columns around templates, you will see some specific metadata which is really only valid for approvals using templates. So first, request type. It's no longer basic. It's using a type template. Then under template form ID, we have a long string which contains 2 tokens. The first one, until the @ sign, is some GUID. I have to tell you, I don't know what GUID is that. Possibly this is a GUID of a team, of the Office 365 group. I haven't checked that, to be honest. So if you want, you can do that. Or, well, we have some time left, so I can do that. So let me navigate to admin at Microsoft. Oh, I'm doing so much errors. All right, so let's see if this is maybe the group of that if this is the GUID of that specific group. So let me jump into teams and groups, and that team where she created a task was, where did she create it? She created it in, oh gosh, in some other group. I think it was this one, right? So it was a retail group. Yeah, it was under the retail group. All right, so that was a retail group. Now here is the group ID. It is 1838446 blah blah blah. So let's see what is here. Yep, that's 1843846. So that is it. All right, so now we know. Okay, admin center is not needed. So that template form ID is constructed of 2 tokens. So the first one is the group ID, where that specific template is present, where it was created, where this Microsoft Forms actually is saved. So the Office 365 group ID. And then the second part is just the form ID. Now, the template ID, that is something that I don't really know where it is used. So I don't even have a clue how this ID can be used. So if you have any ideas, just write down in comments below, please. I'll try to debug. And then obviously the template response ID is just the integer of the index of that message. So with this information, what we could do is, for example, create a new flow that is triggered when a new response is submitted, right? So let's create a new flow. Then you are not able to find that form within the list of, within that dropdown, because that form is for read only and it just won't show up here. So what you have to do is to simply navigate to the list of your forms, then to open that form, and then simply to copy its ID. So it's just at the end of the URL, and then provide it as the custom value. Right? And the next step is obviously, again, from the forms group, is to get response details. So here again, you need to provide the form ID as the custom value, and then form ID is just this response ID. All right, so let's check it out. Templates test 1, right? I'll save it. And then let Adele fill in another request. All right. So now she's going again to retail, leave, and let's say to myself, let's go sick leave this week. Just some remarks and send. So right now, because that Cloudflow is actually monitoring this particular form, if I now go back, there should be the first run ready. So the form was submitted, and here I have the details of Adele's response, right? So the remarks, start date, end date, everything is in here. Cool. But this approach allows you to only monitor a specific template within the Microsoft Teams approvals. Obviously, you might find a business case for such an approach that you only want to monitor and, for example, be notified whenever that specific template is used and filled. Because what is important is that for the approvals sent from Microsoft Teams, me as an assignee, I'm not receiving any notifications. So the only notification I would get, is within Microsoft Teams here under the activity feed. And that is obviously fine, but sometimes you would like to have something more like an email that as well notifies you that there's something has been assigned to you. And well, today there is no such feature, so you can't simply notify assignees through emails, only through activity feed. Nevertheless, you can fix it as well. So now let's try and build a second flow. All right, so this time we'll create a flow that is obviously being triggered whenever, I'll just skip it here, whenever the new record is created within Dataverse tables. So here what I want to choose as a trigger is whenever a record is added. Then I want to use approval table because that's the table where the header of the approval is stored. Let's say scope.organization. And what I could do as well is to just put a filter here so that this flow would not be triggered anytime there is a new record added. But for example, only when the template form ID, so this column here, is not equal, it's not empty, right? So that would be the first step. And then the second step, let's use compose. And compose would be used to split the template form ID. Now here the description of these 3 columns is saying that this is the base64 encoded string ID blah blah blah. However, as we saw directly in data, so in table, looking at the raw data, this information is not actually base64 encoded. So it's just a plain text, and template response ID is just an integer. So this comment, this description here is somehow misleading. Nevertheless, let's use template form ID, and let's split it using the @ symbol. Right? So then we have an option to get this information. And right now, what I'm able as well to do is to get information for the specific response details. So I know now the unique identifier of the form. So I need to use the form ID. And the form ID is obviously going to be the last, because we need to take the second element from the outputs that compose is returning. And the unique identifier of the response is as well present in here, and it's called the template. Okay, I need to search for that. Ouch. Template response ID. So that would give me the response details. Now, another thing that I could do is to as well look for the group. So let's say, what action could we use? Maybe like list group members. So this workflow, so this action now needs to sign into Office 365 groups. And here, again, the group I can provide through the ID, so we'll see. And here I'll use expression saying first. So I want to use the first token returned by the compose action. Okay, and then let's save it. With templates, okay, and save it. So we'll see now what this workflow is going to return once Adele creates a new request. So right now let's choose a different request, for example, the work from home. Again, to myself. So this will be just easier to monitor. For example, she wants to work from home full next week. Okay, and send. So right now, this action is actually creating a new entry within approvals table. So that is going to be the trigger that will release my flow, and as well is obviously creating a new entry in Microsoft Forms as well. So let's go back here. Yep, I hope that there should be something in just a moment. Nevertheless, let's jump over to the forms. And here, once I switched back to, it wasn't retail, it was sales and marketing, and work from home, there is already the response that Adele provided, right? So there is information from Adele. And let's just go back again here. Right, so the workflow ran successfully. And so what do we have? First, we have the compose and 2 information. So the group ID and the form ID. Response details. Response details was able to, through that action and through obtaining the form ID, I was able to obtain all details about that response. So I have information that Adele provided within the form. Now, merging, let's say, this scope of information from Microsoft Forms together with information from the approval table itself will give me the full scope of the information. So for example, it will give me information about the work from home, so what the category of the template it was. It will give me as well information that it was a type of a template. It will give me information when it was created, by whom as well, because, well, that kind of information is as well present within the forms. but it will give me the title of that specific approval and possibly some more information around the description, but maybe not. No. But at least it gives me all this information I can use then to, for example, find all the approval request tasks which were created during that approval, and then later possibly all the responses that will be provided during that approval process. So you can simply go to my other videos to see how all this information in Dataverse is stored and it works together when speaking about approvals. And so in this table as well, what I will find after the approval is done is the outcome. So whether it was approved or rejected. And finally, when looking at the list group members action, I was as well able to properly match that specific group and to list all their members. So what I could do as well is to, for example, use some Graph API actions to get details of that group, like group's name or the URL to Microsoft Teams. Why? For example, to post a message to the chat window or to the chat within that Microsoft Team specific general channel in regards to that new request. So this is all really up to you. And when I'm thinking about building some business logic around that, it's not only about notifications. So I wouldn't only think about notifying the person who is assigned that task, but for example, around some automation scenarios, as I was showing in my previous videos around approvals, plus maybe some further communication to the person who was requesting the approval. So for example, once they request, we could send them some kind of a confirmation message to their chat, to their private chat in Microsoft Teams, or maybe if that's, for example, the out of office request, and that request is approved, then we could automatically set her the out of office setting in their Exchange, or maybe we could notify the team where that request was raised that their team member is going to be out of office between those specific dates. The goal is that you are able to really integrate the template, the approvals using templates with the Microsoft Cloudflow, with the Cloudflows in Microsoft Power Automate to build automation and to get all the data both from Microsoft approvals, from approvals and from Microsoft Forms together to bind it and to use that data in any kind of business scenarios of your choice. Right. So thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions, and as always, please subscribe, write the comments below the video, and like the video as well. So until the next time, I guess. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.